Hey you guys, thank you so much for tuning into my channel. I really was not going to make a video today, but I was really inspired by an article that I read. So, a couple of weeks back, like in July 8th, there was a Dutch woman who became the first transgender woman to win a national beauty pageant in the Netherlands. Now, understandably, there were a lot of people that were angered by this, that were outraged by this. And there were also a lot of people that were really happy to see that the competition was, inclusive of trans people. Now, I've seen the woman who won the Miss Netherlands competition, and in my humble opinion, I think that she's absolutely gorgeous. In fact, I think a lot of the girls who were on that pageant were beautiful. But the issue is never her beauty. The issue is never whether or not she was thin enough, pretty enough, had enough grace, had enough elegance. The issue that people had was that this woman had actually been born male and had been allowed to enter a pageant that was for women. Now, Italy responded by basically banning transgender women from entering Miss Italy competition. The event's organizer, and I'm totally going to butcher this woman's name, her name is like Patricia or something like that. She basically stated, or she made a statement, that only women from birth could enter the Miss Italy competition. And by doing this, she barred anyone that was essentially transgender, anyone that was a trans female, from entering this competition. Now, Italy is moving more towards the right, and a lot of people have moved towards more conservative ideologies in Italy. Now, I don't really want to get into that. What I do want to talk about is the response the transgender community had. Once it was stated that only, women from birth could enter Miss Italy, literally hundreds of transgender men, meaning men who were assigned female at birth but had gender-affirming surgeries to make them men, went in and signed up for that competition, girl. One of the contestants, or one of the people who signed up, his name is Federico Barbosa. I think he's about 22, signed up, and basically, did this to protest the absurdity of the competition. Let's be honest. Them barring trans women has nothing to do with whether or not we are beautiful. It has nothing to do with whether or not we look or don't look like women. It has more to do with this fear that trans activism is somehow going to take over the world, and that transgender ideology is going to somehow become the norm. And I think there are a lot of people out there that, still have very negative and very hostile feelings towards trans women. When I saw the article on how so many trans men literally protested and signed up for the Miss Italy competition, it honestly made me so happy. It made me so happy to see my transgender brothers stand up for the rights of transgender women. Even though trans men are not inherently affected by the Miss Italy competition, the fact that these men were so secure in their masculinity that they were willing to all go up there, sign up with their dead names to enter the Miss Italy competition. Now let's be real. We all know that these men are not going to be accepted as possible contestants for the Miss Italy competition. And why is that? I'll tell you why. Because they're men. They have beards, they have breasts, they have their deep voices. Girl, I wish one of them would be allowed to enter, and in this swimsuit competition rocks his trunks up there. There was a time in my life where I wanted to model, but I knew that I wouldn't be able to. In fact, I actually entered a couple of modeling competitions, and I was able to get, pretty far ahead. But there was so much pushback that I just decided not to do it. And I know so many other girls that are passionate about modeling and want to be seen and want to be recognized. But there is literally, this ceiling that people have placed above us, where whenever we try to enter certain parts of society, certain aspects of society that are open to any other person, we are repeatedly told no, 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 no. And the reasons we're told no are often absurd. Look, I've watched a lot of beauty competitions, I've watched a lot of pageants, and at no point does your genitalia feature in the actual competition. Most beauty competitions are simply based on how you look, how you present yourself, and whether or not you stand out from the other girls. When it comes to beauty pageants, there's always been gatekeeping. I remember when in South Africa, they started allowing black women to enter the Miss South Africa contests. Girl, companies pulled out because they did not want to see a black person win that pageant. Back in the United States, when Vanessa Williams won the Miss America contest, girl was receiving death threats. When we talk about femininity and when we talk about beauty and what is beautiful and what is a beautiful woman, for the longest time, the ideal that we've had has been a Eurocentric, white woman who is cisgender. That's been the idea and the model of beauty for a long time. But as society has progressed, we've started to see that beauty exists in all kinds of communities, within black communities, within Hispanic communities, and guess what? Within transgender communities as well. I think for me, I would have just preferred it if the Miss Italy competition was just straight up and honest and said that we don't want transgender women in our competition because we're repulsed by the idea of transgenders. It would have made more sense to me if they had said in black and white, no transgender people allowed. But by saying that only women from birth can enter the competition, do you know what that means? Do you honestly know what that means? Just because somebody was assigned female at birth does not mean that they identify as that. And it certainly doesn't mean they look like that in their later years. But I just, honestly, it made me so happy to see what all of our trans brothers were doing in support of and in fighting for our rights as trans women. I think it's sad that society has used us as the new scapegoats, whereas in reality we are such a small minority. We are such a small minority in the world. Most people are never even going to meet a transgender person. It's not a big pandemic or it's not a big issue that people like to make it out to be. I think it's sad that society tries to exclude us from things that are open to the general public and tries to act as though we don't exist. We do exist. And by making these arbitrary laws, it only shows how deeply rooted transphobia is within the hearts of some organizations, within the hearts of certain individuals. And I'm glad that there are people like Federico who, he literally put himself out there on the line to sign up for this competition. Him and all of these other trans men, they didn't need to do this. But the fact that these men literally went in by the hundreds just to protest and to show that, you are not going to pretend we don't exist. You're not going to pretend that we are not here. And if you're going to bar trans women, just be real about your shit and say we don't want transgenders. Just leave it at that. But don't make it some arbitrary rule and say only women from birth. We know why that rule was put out there. We know it's anti-trans. And if you're going to have an organization, instead of trying to sound politically correct, rather just be honest with your bullshit. I think people will appreciate that more and say that our organization is inherently anti-trans. We see beauty pageants as something that only cisgender women from birth that adhere to the beauty standard, that are able-bodied and of a certain height and weight can enter. And I think, if y'all were just real with that, the lights just went off. If y'all were just real with that, I would have so much more respect for the entire organization. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to my little rant. I'm not sure if I made any sense, but let me know what you guys think. Like, what do you think about all of these men entering the Miss Italy competition? There was a part of me that was actually worried that by putting themselves out there like this, they would inherently put themselves, in danger of being assaulted, of being, of having things happen to them, negative things happen to them, because you know how crazy the world gets. But the fact that these men literally came out in droves just to support us trans girls means the absolute most to me. So to all of the men that have signed up for the Miss Italy competition, you have my support, boy. You go there, you go. Don't shave. Don't you dare shave. Go in there with your deep-ass voice. Just show them how stupid their rules are. At the end of the day, history is going to show us who is right. At the end of the day, all of these conservative values that people are trying to fight for, in the next 30 to 50 years, society will find a new scapegoat. Society will find a new scapegoat. And I can honestly tell you this as somebody who's, lived through apartheid, well, as a baby, and who's seen how my country has moved forward, and who's seen how gatekeeping certain groups of people doesn't really work in the long run. I can tell you this now, that history will show you that you were dead wrong. You were dead wrong in trying to bar us from something that is, that other people can enter. Just because you say that trans women can't enter your competition does not mean that trans women won't exist. It does not mean that trans women cannot be beautiful, and it does not mean that trans women will not be seen. We are seen, we are here, and we have so many supporters. There are so many people out there that are willing to put their masculinity on the line just to support the girls. It means the absolute most to me. So to all the trans men out there who support the trans women, dude, I love you. Okay, bye!